Welcome to the Best 5-Minute Wine Podcast with Forrest Kelly.
So actually growing up, I wanted to be a secretary.
A secretary?
Yeah, a secretary.
The Best 5-Minute Wine Podcast.
Do you remember a point in your conversation with your grandparents that you could see kind of the light switch in their eyes and seeing that you had this passion and you had the knowledge and the wherewithal and they could kind of touch you and go, okay, we're letting you take over?
Great question. So actually growing up, I wanted to be a secretary because we had this secretary that worked for the winery.
What?
Yeah.
A secretary?
Yeah. A secretary, yes. But we had a secretary who worked for the winery. Her name was Miss Carol, and she was so kind to my brother, to me, when we had a great relationship with her, and she got to work with my dad every day. And so I wanted to have a job where I got to work with my dad every day. And I was like, that sounds perfect. But I grew up in the industry, right? So we'd go to the events, we'd meet the other winemakers. You know, I knew the other people in the industry, through Maryland, Virginia, up to New York and Pennsylvania. And every single one of them was an old white guy. And so nobody ever told me I couldn't do it, but I never saw someone that looked like me. And it wasn't until I was about 10 when I was in my grandparents' house and on the coffee table, they had the Wine Business Monthly, circular, the magazine there. And on the front page, on the cover was Gina Gallo. And not many 10-year-olds know about the Gallo family, but when you grow up in the wine industry, you know about the Gallo family. And my grandmother was like, do you know who that is? And I said, I have no idea. She's like, that is Gina Gallo. She's the winemaker at Gallo, and her grandparents started Gallo, much like your grandparents started Linganore. And at that point, I was like, bing! And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Like, she was literally the reason that I thought that women could make wine, because nobody had told me otherwise. But I didn't see a role model in, fulfilling that role here on the East Coast. So when I applied to go to Cornell, there were no women winemakers in Maryland, and I think we're at like almost around 10 right now out of the 100 wineries, which is a pretty good ratio. So I'm really glad that that's the situation that we're at.
You obviously got into Cornell, but was it difficult? I mean, that's a pretty prestigious school.
It was, yeah. It's a good question. The proclaimed nerd in me, like I was a pretty good student, and getting into Cornell, I was so pleased and so excited that day I got the acceptance letter. And it was a tough call because it was between Cornell and UC Davis. Those were the two schools, I'd gotten into all the enology schools I applied to, and, all 7 of them in the United States at the time. And it was a tough call because Davis has a reputation. Cornell was just starting out their undergrad program, but they'd had a grad program for a while. So it's just starting out their undergrad program. The winemaking and the way that you grow grapes, everything is different on the East Coast than it is on the West Coast. Yeah. And I was really, really afraid about going out West and learning West Coast techniques and not being able to apply it to the challenges that we face here. That it's just so different than what's faced out in California. I would say, like, my time at Cornell, some of my easiest classes were actually the winemaking classes, because the ones like in the major, because I've been doing it for most of my life at that point. So I had practical knowledge, and then I was just adding the theory behind it. But then the theory made sense. So I was like, oh, well, that's why I use this pump like that. Or, oh, that's how this, I just didn't know the theory behind why it is that I was taught to do it like this. The more difficult classes were the ones outside of my major. But I had a great time regardless.
You did your internship and you went to New Zealand and you went to wineries, went to Napa, you went to wineries all over the world. Do you have a favorite memory from going to those different wineries?
I think one of my favorite memories was my last harvest. I worked that I was as an intern. I worked at Grand Moraine in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. And it's a very small winery. It's owned by Kendall Jackson, but it's a lot of fun because it's one of their pet project wineries. So they have a lot of cool toys and a small batch. And I was in charge of the barrel hall that harvest. And so I had, I think, 700 barrels that I filled and organized and stacked, perfectly. But at the end of filling it, day of filling barrels, I had to go up and I had to clean the tank out. And this one day, it was near the end of harvest, by like late October, the winemaker comes out and he goes, listen, I'll make you a deal. I'll clean that tank for you as long as you'll foot tread these grapes for me. And I was like, I don't know, Shane, it's pretty cold out. I'm not sure I'm going to actually want to do that. He's like, I'll sweeten the deer with some after work libations. I was like, okay, I'm in. And so I hopped into a 3-ton tank of Pinot Noir, pulled some shorts out of my backpack and started foot treading a tank of Pinot Noir instead of cleaning a tank of Lee's. So that was probably one of the most memorable experiences I had.
Now, why he was just bored with doing it, or why did he make that deal with you?
The sentence he told me is because I had great legs, which is a whole other conversation, but we'll go with that.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. What guys will do to get out of work sometimes.
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
The best 5-minute wine podcast.
Don't forget my favorite part.
Oh, please like and follow.
And you can like and follow us on our social media and join in our collaborations. Just like our website, thebestwinepodcast.com, on Insta, X, you know where. The Best Wine Pod. The Best Wine Pod.
Oh.